Bud West here with the Bond Brain, and I am standing in the Painted Stave Distillery in Smyrna, Delaware. I came in here a few weeks ago, and anyone who follows this channel knows how much I like whiskey, and well, let's just say I didn't leave empty-handed. I am here with one of the co-owners and operators of Painted Stave. This is Mike. It is a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
And tell us about this place. Tell us about yourself. How did you get into this, and what you got going here, man?
Cool. So Painted Stave Distilling, we're located in downtown Smyrna, Delaware. It's an old movie theater, which is kind of cool, which plays into the Bond thing too. So
Absolutely.
Some of the Bond films did show here. So my business partner and I, we both came from academia. We weren't like, my grandpappy was a moonshiner type of stories. But we were a couple of guys. We both really loved whiskey. We loved cocktails, and probably about summer of 2011, so about 14 years ago, we got introduced to each other because we were both interested in this idea of opening a craft distillery. And we had great wives who were very fortunate. They let us quit our jobs and run off to go make liquor. And so we've been at it ever since. We've been open here in Smyrna since the fall of 2013. Started off as really like a tasting bar and did a lot of tours and things like that. And over the years, we've evolved to being a craft cocktail bar, and we've added on a couple of our own food trucks. And then we do a ton of different events and programs. So like tonight we're leading a cocktail class, but we do a lot of pairing events and tasting events. And it's just been this sort of fun evolution from a couple of guys who started off like sipping whiskey in a basement to making our own and sharing it with the world.
So one of the other reasons that we are here tonight is that they've got 50 people coming in 2 different time periods for a very special event. What's your event?
Yeah, so we are doing our James Bond themed cocktail class. We do a number of different cocktail classes. Some of them are features around like a product or something, but we've been having a lot of fun recently doing movie themed cocktail classes. And they're pretty cool because it's a chance for us to kind of have some fun, go back, watch some movies, share a lot of stories about watching those movies, and then come up with cocktails that we think are fun sort of plays on that. So a lot of times for this one, there's one particular cocktail that we'll be making that we didn't come up with.
No.
But typically we will design 3 different cocktails that are each one sort of specific and play off of a different theme or character in a different movie. And then we'll take the whole class. So everybody will spend time with me. We will walk through all the ingredients, the equipment, and we'll all make 3 cocktails and share and enjoy them while we talk about the movies and things like that. We'll do a little trivia and that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then we'll do it twice. So I get to have 2 rounds of drinks.
Right. So obviously he's making a Vesper. We
Yeah.
know that
course.
one's coming.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the other 2?
So the first one that we're doing is a play on Goldfinger. And so it's sort of like a gold creamsicle type of cocktail.
Okay.
So it's going to utilize it's got a little bit of cream in it. It's got some turmeric. It's got lots and lots of gold dust that goes into it.
Wow.
And so kind of a fun like play on that. And then the third, we're doing the Vesper second, and which is a great cocktail, and I hope everybody loves it. I know I love it.
I like a Vesper.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we're finishing off with a sort of a more refined version of like a Sex on the Beach. We sort of deconstructed that because like half the movies have him walking out of the sand in a bikini.
Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Just
so we were like, so there's so many like fun beach scenes that we could play off, but we didn't. But we wanted to take that old sort of like Sex on the Beach cocktail and then like just play with the ingredients to make it into something a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more us. So
right, put your own flavor on it. That's very cool. And you've never done a James Bond before.
No, this is the first time. So this is the first Bond themed cocktail class we've done. Typically, we've done a lot of the we did a number of like National Lampoons ones and things like that. Very few with as much history and as much sort of culture. I would say none of the other ones started off as books, right? Like,
Okay.
So this one has a literary history that I think is a lot of fun.
Sure.
But the movies just lend themselves to it. And then it's a good excuse for people to go back and watch the old movies and sort of get to relive those.
So you're a Bond fan, obviously.
I am a Bond
if you
fan,
know
yes.
that much about it.
Yep.
Okay, so what's your favorite?
Oh, that's really hard.
It's a tough question
Yeah.
for everybody.
So I was the kid who was in the transition period, right? So the end of the late 80s movies, the Dalton movies, and moving into the Brosnan movies. So
Okay.
the ones that I remember most are the Pierce Brosnan movies. And so Goldeneye was probably, that was 1995. I was like a junior or senior in high school. So those are the ones that I think have the most, I don't know, the greatest connection to me, because I went and saw those in the theaters, and we looked forward to those Bond movies.
Very common for that age range, if that's how old you were back then, and particularly also because of the game.
Yeah.
The GoldenEye game, which
Absolutely.
really sold a lot of people on.
Oh my God, yeah.
I
I owned it on probably 3 different consoles over the years.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I think that that time period. But I loved. We went back. I've probably seen all of them. From the sexy Sean Connery to the sort of the goofy Roger Moore type of movies, and then the spin-offs and all of that. I think it's a great platform for people to have a lot of fun with it. But I will tell you that, so as much as the Pierce Brosnan movies probably have a spot in my heart, the Daniel Craig movies were really, really good. And
they're entertaining.
Yeah.
And usually you end up with, whoever you started watching with ends up being your favorite. But you like the ones going forward. I have a 28-year-old son. He'll watch the Brosnans and he'll watch the Craigs. And the other ones, the best I can get out of him is, hey, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah. There's a spot in there where it was summer times and not a lot going on, and you're like, oh, Moonraker, let's watch that.
Yes.
And it was cheesy and there was a lot of fun to it, but they were fun movies, right? They were certainly intended to be fun. They weren't gritty action movies at that point. And as a younger man, I enjoyed that. So.
Yeah, sure. And you'll find that your taste will change over the years. The first time I saw a Roger Moore movie in the theater, I thought, oh my God, I just paid money to watch my dad run around, shoot people, and get lucky.
Yes.
How do people watch this?
Yeah.
And now, all these years later, I love those movies.
Yeah.
So your taste will change over time.
Yeah, I could see that, because it is. We watched a lot of it in college. There, a Bond movie marathon or something like that would be going on.
TNT, TBS, they used to run them religiously.
Oh yeah, forever. And so they were always a great opportunity to go back and watch some of those movies that you weren't likely to actually go and see in the theater, or that weren't going to be playing in a theater because they weren't new.
Sure.
But they were ones where you probably wouldn't have picked that out. But I can remember being a kid and going to rent movies, right, in the store, and seeing the James Bond covers for the old movies and stuff like that, and wanting to go back and watch those. And so over the years I've gotten to probably fill in most of those. I've never actually read any of the books, but knowing that and seeing how some of those movies evolved and the character evolved was pretty cool.
Yeah, very few of the books actually even match the film.
Yeah,
the books are a lot more sedate. They're not huge reads, 150 pages. But there's a lot of people that have only seen the movies. I even met a guy that only read the books, which that's an oddity. Usually people have seen
typically
the movies
and
not the books. But it's just been around for so long. I mean, I'm a guy pushing 60, and there were ones in the theaters that I was too young to see. It's just amazing how long it has lasted, and it has turned into stuff like you're doing right here. If you're going to do movies and cocktails, how do you not do James Bond?
Oh, for sure. And so the theater here stopped showing movies in 75, right? So you would have got almost all of the Connery movies would have shown here.
Yeah.
That's just kind of neat. This was one of those big single screen movie theaters. It was the place to be in the area.
Wow.
And so there's probably a lot of people who saw their first James Bond movie in this theater, which is kind of cool.
You need a big drop down screen.
Yeah. And then pay for the licensing and all the other things that are necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
You just play the Blu-ray. right?
Yeah. Keep
But
it
yeah,
quiet.
no, you got to worry about that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right?
As a business owner,
Yeah, you got to watch that.
But there is a like I think that's a fun piece. We actually when we got started, we tried to integrate like history and stories of the theater into a lot of our products. We've
Okay.
sort of evolved away from that over the years, but there is something fun about like having this tangential connection to cinema that I think that we've always sort of enjoyed and tried to have a lot of fun with. So
Right. And you have tied other things into some of your names for your spirits.
yeah,
Tie
yep,
back into a history of the area.
yep,
And,
yeah. We tried to do that. Actually, our first vodka was Silver Screen vodka.
okay.
And like we did a cranberry vodka that was called Scarlet, and we did an espresso vodka called Time Warp. Right, we played with a lot of those sort of ideas into the product names, and it makes for a lot of fun.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So
Um, anything else you want to tell the people that are watching this about
oh.
Painted Stave?
Sure. So while we do a lot of cocktail classes and other things like that, the one of the things you mentioned is being into whiskey, right? And I say we're whiskey lovers. We do a lot of cool whiskeys. So we spend a lot of our products. If you come and visit us, you can do a flight at any point in time. I probably got 5 or 6 different whiskeys that are out on the shelf. And we really pride ourselves on that. That's something that, I've spent the last almost 12 years making whiskey, putting it away, allowing it to age.
I loved every one of them. I
Oh,
don't
good.
know how I got out of here without spending $1,000, but yeah.
Well, that's why we have you come back, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we have a lot of fun with the whiskey side of it. We make some fantastic cocktails. We've got an awesome cocktail program. But I think the thing that sort of drove us originally was this idea of crafting some of those really nice barrel-aged spirits. And now that we're finally old enough that we can be putting out 6, 8, 9-year-old whiskeys, it's very, very
True.
happy and like
It's
to
tough
share
when
that.
you have to age.
Oh yeah. When we first opened, it was vodka and gin, right? Because they're unaged spirits. We could put them on the shelf almost immediately and start generating revenue and pay the bills. But the whole goal has been to lay down barrels and barrels of whiskey and then give it that time to age away and become something that we're really proud of. And so I think we've finally hit that spot where not only are we making awesome cocktails, but we're putting out some really, really fun and tasty whiskeys.
Your gin is excellent too,
Oh,
by the
cool.
way.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
think it was a botanical
Yeah.
gin. I am not a huge gin drinker. You could sip that. You don't even have to mix that into a cocktail.
Yeah.
It was that smooth.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. One of the neat things about the craft cocktail world is that everybody can make gin, and you can put your own spin on it relatively simply. And so when we set out to make a gin, the goal was never to make the London Dry style of gin, right? People already do that, and they do
People
it
already
really,
do.
really well.
Right, sure.
So we took the approach of making what they call a more botanical forward or a contemporary style of gin, which is actually great because there's a lot of people who think that they don't like gin because the only gin that they've ever had is Beefeater or Tanqueray, and they are not fond of that heavy, more juniper profile. But we can build in lavender and lemon balm and orris root and these softer, more floral botanicals and really give people a different experience than they've ever had with gin. But at the same time, right, you're making a cocktail like a Vesper, right? You need gin, you need vodka. But our Vesper will be different than if you were using Beefeater to make that Vesper.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is fun because then you can have, hey, I like this cocktail, and you get a little bit of a variation on it.
Right. Now, how much did you know about distilling spirits before you? I mean, I've gotten into situations where I think I know everything, and then I find out I don't know this much.
So I loved the history. My original goal in life was to be a history teacher. I loved the history of the spirits. I loved the history of the manufacturing techniques and how they vary all over the world,
Okay.
how they've evolved. So I really appreciate the story behind distilling as much as the spirits. Now, obviously, there's some really good booze out there and some really not great booze, right? Our goal is to make something that we're really, really proud of. But the history, even behind some of the dark days of drinking, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. And actually, one of the other things that we do, we call them drunk history events, which it's open to the public. It's like $10 or something like that. You get a couple of cocktail samples, but we go through all of the history of something. We did the history of rum. We've done the history of absinthe. The most recent one we
That's
did a
pretty
history
cool.
of New Orleans. And not the whole every in and out of it, but like how alcohol played a role in the evolution of that city. Like those kind of history pieces are a lot of fun. So I ended up as a history teacher eventually, just more fun history.
That's a man after my own heart. I have a 400-volume history library in my house.
There you go. Yeah, and I think people don't necessarily appreciate the importance and the role of alcohol and the industry and the economic sort of role of alcohol in the history of not just the United States but in the country. And so it's a really cool and layered story that we get to integrate into drinks with friends, basically.
Yeah, and the way the whole industry has evolved from, I mean, how many small wineries are there now?
Oh, yeah.
And distilleries, and the small batch brewing
Yep.
companies,
Yeah,
and stuff
absolutely.
like that. It's really kind of taken off, and
Yeah.
I think it's become more of a sophisticated thing than it ever was, probably 50 years ago or 60
Yeah,
years ago.
certainly when people talk about the idea of like old booze, like prohibition or pre-prohibition whiskeys and things like that, and I've tried some of them, they're generally awful. I'm happy somebody else is paying for those things, but
Right.
like we live in the golden age of drinking right now, as far as things go. The quality of the ingredients that we have, and the breadth of the ingredients, the quality of the alcohol, the number of people in this space innovating and doing really interesting things in whiskey and gin and vodka and liqueurs. There's just so much fantastic stuff that we have, and that the craft spirits world owes a lot of that to people who came before us. The wineries were first, right? They got started back in like the 60s and the
Right.
70s, and now there's like something like 13,000 small wineries or something like that in the country. Then the breweries come along in the 80s and the 90s, and they really push the envelope for a lot of people on what flavor forward drinks look like. But all through that, the spirit world was kind of dying for a long time. The 60s, the 70s, the 80s, those are the dark days of the spirit world.
Some spirits just disappeared
Yeah.
entirely. Like you could not get a bottle of rye
No.
in that period of
Yeah.
time. But now rye has made this, seems like a huge comeback.
Yeah, and a lot of the liqueurs and a lot of the brandies and things that they weren't on the market for 30 years. But entrepreneurs have come out and said, hey, the world really does need a really good, Lillet, right? You couldn't get Lillet in this country for
No.
probably 10, 15 years.
No,
Or
it's still hard to get actually in our area.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, that's true. Or there's some of these liqueurs. So creme yvette, which is a fantastic liqueur that's used in the aviation. For a long time, you couldn't find creme yvette, maybe in like a couple of places in DC and San Francisco and New York, but you were never going to find it in a liquor store in Delaware.
Right.
So you couldn't make an aviation, and you couldn't share that awesome cocktail with people because you couldn't get the ingredients. Now, just about anywhere we have access to those ingredients, and bartenders who are pushing the envelope on interesting flavors and how to integrate those things together. It's a lot of fun. It's a great time to be out there exploring and drinking. So,
anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you coming and checking it out. I'm glad that you heard about our little cocktail class.
Anything is James Bond, and then after coming here and having some of your stuff, I'm like, well, I got to call this guy. I got to send him an email.
Cool.
And fortunately, Mike and I have a mutual friend, and that is how we were able to hook this up. And
yeah,
thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate you talking. You got a great establishment here.
Thank you.
And I'm glad to see that this event is going to be so successful for you.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
So,
yeah, we appreciate it.
Good luck, and you come over, check out the history books anytime you want.
Yeah, I like history. It's so much fun.
It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay,
Cheers.
thanks.
Thank you.
This is Bud West with Bond Brain. The Bond Brain will return.